Hello fellow followers, building a wall, defending with swords and renewing the covenant. It's time for the book of Nehemiah. The book of Nehemiah, or two Ezras, is the second half of one book, the first half of which we call either Ezra or one Ezras. And I made a video about that the other day, and you can watch that by clicking the link in the doobly-doo or by clicking just there. Seriously, if you haven't watched it, you could do with doing that, otherwise this video won't make any sense. To understand Nehemiah, you need to understand Ezra. I'm still waiting. Click there. Or there. Okay, well don't say I didn't warn you if it didn't make any sense. It begins with a guy called Nehemiah, who's the cupbearer for King Artaxerxes of Persia. Now a cupbearer is basically a waiter, only it's more important than that because they need to check that the food is safe and isn't poisoned. So it's quite a privileged position. And one day Nehemiah hears about the state of Jerusalem, about how the walls have been knocked down, and he's really sad about it. Then he goes and serves the king, and the king sees that he's upset and asks him what's wrong. Nehemiah tells him, and King Artaxerxes says, well then go and build the wall, I will give you permission, and I will give you building materials. And so Nehemiah goes. Hello, Your Majesty.
Oh, hello, Nehemiah. Well, you look sad today.
Well, I just heard about Jerusalem and all the walls have been knocked down, and it just makes me so sad to think of it like that.
Oh, that's terrible. I'll tell you what, why don't you go and rebuild the wall? I'll even give you some building materials to do it.
Really?
That's brilliant. Thank you.
The rest of the story is then about how he rebuilds the walls. It begins with him taking a tour of the walls on his donkey. Not in a very good state, is it? Now, a wall around a city, especially a capital city, is a big deal. It gives them a kind of semi-independence because they're safer. They're much harder to attack. The Persian king is actually taking a big risk allowing this to happen. Because of this, the neighbouring countries really aren't impressed that Jerusalem are being allowed to rebuild their city wall. Now, at first, they don't believe they can actually do it, and so they just start taking the mick out of them.
Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelt of elderberries.
But as the building continues, they start getting really worried, and this leads to the central drama of the story. They try and assassinate Nehemiah. They try and trick him into leaving. Eventually, the people who are building the wall have to build with one hand and hold swords in the other in order to fend off attack. Eventually they finish the wall and have a big covenant renewal ceremony. So they have a 24-day long party, followed by a national confession and a promise that they're going to stay faithful to the law. The book then finishes with the consecration of the wall and some final reforms. Now the themes that are in Ezra are here too because it's the same book. The people are trying to work out who they are. With so few of the Israelites left, who are they as a people? Is the exile over or are they still waiting? As we'll see when we get to the prophetic books, they were promised a grand return, a new exodus, but instead they've come back in drips and drabs and foreign powers are still ruling over them. Crucially, this is the end of Old Testament history. Everything we've got to still do, which is a lot, fits into this history. So the Old Testament doesn't finish with a grand climax, but with a question still hanging over the people. When will the exile be over? How will the promises of Abraham and David come true? When you read the Gospels, when you read the story of Jesus, you should have these questions in mind. And there we have it, the book of Nehemiah. God bless, fellow followers. Just a quick add-on to get our history to the point of the New Testament. At the time of Nehemiah, the Persians are ruling over Jerusalem. Eventually, they are defeated by Alexander the Great. When Alexander dies, his kingdom is divided between his generals, and Jerusalem lies between two of these places. Essentially, Jerusalem ends up changing hands quite a lot of times, including for a brief period some independence under the Hasmoneans. But then the Romans come along, which takes us to the New Testament. And we will eventually get to the New Testament in, well, Probably years at this rate, let's be honest. But we will get there.